Welcome to Mystery Tales, dear listeners. I'm your host, Alex Thorne, and tonight I have a treat for you. A brand new Hercule Poirot mystery, crafted in the timeless style of the Queen of Crime herself, Agatha Christie. Settle in with a cup of tea, dim the lights, and let me transport you to the 1920s. This is Sinister Maid of the Coral House, a tale of deception, locked doors, and the little grey cells at work. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We unravel puzzles like this every week. Chapter 1, Invitation to Coral House. In the autumn of 1925, London wore a shroud of fog as thick as a conspirator's whisper. The streets, slick with mist, echoed faintly with the clop of hooves and the occasional rumble of a motorcar piercing the gloom. At Whitehaven Mansions, in a flat as orderly as a Swiss clock, Hercule Poirot sat in a velvet-upholstered chair, his small, precise hands cradling a steaming tisane. His moustaches, waxed to a gleaming point, quivered slightly as he sorted through a pile of correspondence with the meticulous care of a jeweller inspecting gems. "Mon ami Hastings," Poirot called, his voice carrying the crisp lilt of his Belgian heritage. "Come, see what the post has brought. An invitation, most curious, from Lord Reginald Harrington of Coral House in Sussex. He requests my presence for a weekend gathering. What do you make of it?" Captain Arthur Hastings, Poirot's steadfast companion, looked up from his armchair by the fire, where he'd been absorbed in the sporting pages of the Times. His honest, ruddy face broke into a grin, his eyes alight with the prospect of adventure. "Coral House, eh? Sounds like one of those grand country piles. Turrets, tapestries, and all of that. What's the occasion, old chap? A hunt? A ball?" Poirot's green eyes twinkled with that peculiar intensity that signalled his little grey cells were already stirring. "No, Hastings, it is not so simple. Lord Harrington speaks of a matter of delicate family importance. He is a man of wealth, made in the colonies, and a collector of rare corals, hence the name of his estate. The guest list is intriguing. His wife, Lady Evelyn Harrington, their daughter, Miss Beatrice, his business partner, Mr. Victor Langford, the family physician, Dr. Elias Thorne, and his secretary, Mr. Geoffrey Blaine. And, naturellement, there is mention of the household staff, led by a maid, Miss Clara Voss, a woman, they say, of mysterious origins." Hastings folded his newspaper, leaning forward. "Mysterious maid, you say? That's the stuff of detective yarns. And corals, fancy that. Sounds like a weekend ripe for intrigue. Are we going?" Poirot inclined his head, a faint smile playing beneath his impeccable moustaches. "Oui, mon ami. The little grey cells, they sense a puzzle. We shall depart tomorrow. But first, I must consult my wardrobe. Such an occasion demands the perfect attire." The journey to Sussex was a study in contrasts. The smoky bustle of Victoria Station gave way to the serene roll of the countryside, where fields of gold and amber stretched beneath a weak autumn sun. The train's rhythmic clatter lulled Hastings into a doze, but Poirot remained alert, his mind cataloguing every detail of Lord Harrington's letter. Upon arrival at the sleepy station of Amberley, a chauffeur in a polished black uniform awaited, ushering them into a gleaming Rolls-Royce. The car wound along a narrow drive flanked by ancient oaks, their branches forming a tunnel of dappled light. Coral House emerged from the landscape like a vision from a Gothic novel. Its Tudor facade, with ivy clinging to weathered stone, seemed to whisper secrets of centuries past. Mullioned windows caught the fading light, glinting like the facets of a precious stone. The estate's namesake was evident the moment they stepped into the entrance hall. Glass cabinets lined the walls, displaying corals of breathtaking variety. Branching reds from the Pacific, delicate fans from the Indian Ocean, and brain-like structures that seemed almost alive in their eerie symmetry. The air carried a faint briny scent, as if the sea itself lingered in the room. Lord Reginald Harrington greeted them at the door, a tall man in his 50s, with a face weathered by years abroad. His handshake was firm, his smile courteous but strained, as if weighed by some unspoken burden. Monsieur Poirot, Captain Hastings, a pleasure to have you. My coral collection awaits your inspection. I've heard of your eye for detail, sir. As they crossed the threshold, Poirot's sharp gaze swept the hall, noting the household staff bustling discreetly. The butler, a stiff figure named Parsons, bowed with mechanical precision. From the kitchen doorway, a cook peered out, her apron dusted with flour. But it was the maid, Clara Voss, who drew Poirot's attention. She was a striking woman in her early 30s, with raven hair pinned tightly beneath a starched cap, and eyes like polished onyx, sharp and unreadable. Her uniform was immaculate, yet there was a tension in her posture, a subtle rigidity, as if she held secrets as tightly as she clutched the silver tray in her hands. Poirot's moustaches twitched. A sign Hastings knew meant suspicion had taken root. Lady Evelyn Harrington descended the grand staircase, her silk gown rustling softly. She was a vision of elegance, her auburn hair swept up and adorned with pearls. But her smile was tight, her eyes flickering toward Clara with a hint of unease. "Welcome, gentlemen. Dinner is at 8. I trust you'll find Coral House comfortable." Miss Beatrice Harrington followed, a modern young woman of 22 with a bobbed haircut and a mischievous glint in her hazel eyes. She wore a flapper-style dress that clashed delightfully with the estate's old-world charm. "Father's corals are frightfully dull, but the weekend will be anything but. We've planned croquet, charades, and perhaps a séance if Dr. Thorne can be persuaded." She flashed a teasing smile at the physician, who had just entered. Dr. Elias Thorne, a portly man with round spectacles and a kindly air, chuckled as he adjusted his tie. "I'm a man of science, Miss Beatrice, not spirits, but for you, I might make an exception." His warmth seemed genuine, but Poirot noted the way his eyes lingered on Lord Harrington, as if assessing more than health. Mr. Victor Langford, the business partner, strode in with the confidence of a man accustomed to boardrooms. His pencil moustache and sharp suit gave him a predatory air, and his handshake was just a touch too forceful. "Poirot, is it? Heard you've cracked some tough cases. Our coral imports from the East Indies are thriving. Perhaps we could discuss investments over brandy." Lastly, Geoffrey Blaine, the secretary, hovered at the edge of the group. A nervous young man with ink-stained fingers and a habit of pushing his spectacles up his nose, he nodded shyly. "The study is prepared, sir, if you need privacy," he mumbled, eyes darting to his employer. Tea was served in the drawing room, a cavernous space with velvet drapes and a roaring fire. As the guests sipped from delicate china, Poirot observed the undercurrents. Lady Evelyn's polite chatter barely masked her discomfort when Clara refilled her cup. Beatrice flirted openly with Langford, who responded with a smirk that suggested familiarity. Dr. Thorne watched Lord Harrington with a physician's concern, or was it calculation? Blaine fidgeted, spilling sugar cubes, while Clara moved silently, her presence like a shadow that chilled the room. As the afternoon waned, Lord Harrington drew Poirot aside, leading him to a quiet alcove near the coral displays. Monsieur Poirot," he said in a low voice, "I invited you for more than a social call. There have been incidents, small thefts from my collection, rare corals, priceless, and these." He produced a folded paper from his waistcoat. "Anonymous letters, accusing me of ill-gotten gains from my colonial ventures. Someone in this house is plotting against me. Will you help?" Poirot's eyes narrowed as he examined the letter. Its words cut from newspapers. "Your corals are stained with blood. Justice will find you." "Most intriguing," he murmured. "Who has access to your collection?" "The family, the staff. Clara Voss cleans the display room daily. I suspect her, but I've no proof." Poirot folded the letter carefully. "Fear not, milord. Hercule Poirot does not fail. The truth, it will reveal itself." As twilight deepened, casting long shadows across Coral House, a storm gathered on the horizon. Thunder rumbled faintly, and Poirot felt a prickle of unease. The weekend, he sensed, would bring more than theft. It would bring tragedy. Chapter 2. Shadows over the Estate. The first night at Coral House wrapped its guests in a cocoon of luxury, yet an undercurrent of unease stirred beneath the polished surface. Hercule Poirot, ever the observer, retired to his guest chamber. A lavish room with heavy brocade curtains and a four-poster bed overlooking the estate's manicured gardens. Moonlight filtered through the mullioned windows, casting silver patterns on the floor. But sleep eluded the little Belgian detective. His mind, sharp as a freshly honed blade, replayed the day's encounters. The strange smiles, the fleeting glances, the weight of Lord Harrington's whispered plea for help. The anonymous letter, with its jagged newspaper clippings, lay on his bedside table, its words, "Your corals are stained with blood," echoing in his thoughts. Captain Hastings in the adjoining room was less troubled. His snores, muffled through the oak-panelled walls, brought a faint smile to Poirot's lips. "Mon ami," Poirot murmured to himself, "you sleep while the little grey cells labour." He rose, donning a silk dressing-gown, and paced softly, his polished shoes silent on the Persian rug. The air carried a chill, and outside the wind began to howl, heralding a storm that seemed to mirror the gathering tension within Coral House. Morning broke with a golden haze, the fog of the previous day giving way to a crisp autumn light. Breakfast was served in the conservatory, a glass-walled haven filled with potted palms and yet more coral displays, their intricate forms catching the sun like treasures from a sunken ship. The guests gathered around a long mahogany table, its surface gleaming under silver cloches. Lord Reginald Harrington presided at the head, his weathered face etched with irritation, as he snapped at the maid, Clara Voss, who poured coffee with mechanical precision. "Careful, girl," Harrington barked, his voice cutting through the clink of china. "That's Wedgwood, priceless, like my corals." Clara's lips tightened, but she curtsied, her black eyes flashing for a fraction of a second before resuming their impenetrable calm. "Yes, my lord," she replied, her voice soft but laced with an accent Poirot couldn't quite place. German, perhaps, or something further east. He noted it, filing it away with the precision of a librarian cataloguing a rare manuscript. Resentment, he mused, could be a powerful motive. Had Clara served long under Harrington's sharp tongue? Lady Evelyn Harrington, seated to her husband's right, sipped her tea with delicate poise, her pearls catching the light. Yet her fingers trembled slightly, and her gaze darted toward Clara, as if the maid's presence were a splinter under her skin. "Reginald, must you be so harsh?" she murmured, her tone more weary than reproachful. Beatrice Harrington, vibrant in an emerald green frock, laughed lightly, breaking the tension. "Oh, father, you'll scare poor Clara away, and then who'll keep your precious corals dusted?" Her teasing tone belied the hurt in her eyes. A flicker Poirot caught as she glanced at her father. Was there a rift here, perhaps over money or independence? Victor Langford, the business partner, leaned back in his chair, a cigar already smouldering despite the early hour. "Reginald, old boy, you've got a treasure trove here. Those corals could fund a small empire." His sharp eyes, framed by a pencil moustache, assessed the room like a hawk circling prey. Poirot noted the proprietary edge in his voice. Did Langford see Coral House as his own prize? Dr. Elias Thorne, the physician, buttered his toast with care, his spectacles glinting as he observed Harrington. "You seem tense, Reginald. Perhaps a check-up later? Your heart, you know." His concern seemed genuine, but Poirot detected a calculating undertone. A doctor with debts, perhaps, or secrets? Geoffrey Blaine, the secretary, fumbled with his napkin, nearly upsetting his teacup. I've prepared the accounts, sir," he stammered to Harrington. "Ready in the study whenever you wish." His nervous energy was palpable, his ink-stained fingers betraying late nights with ledgers. Honest work or something more? As breakfast concluded, the guests dispersed. Beatrice and Langford announced a walk in the gardens, their laughter trailing as they exited arm in arm. Dr. Thorne retired to the library, muttering about a medical journal. Blaine scurried off to his duties, while Lady Evelyn lingered, her eyes following Clara as the maid cleared the table with silent efficiency. Poirot, ever watchful, approached Lord Harrington, who led him to the study, a sanctuary of polished mahogany and leather-bound books. A massive oak desk dominated the room, flanked by locked cabinets housing the prized coral collection. A French window, bolted securely, overlooked the lawns where storm clouds now gathered. The door's sturdy lock gleamed, its key nestled in Harrington's waistcoat pocket. "See here, Poirot," Harrington said, unlocking a cabinet with a small brass key. "This pink coral branch, stolen last week, worth thousands, and this." He handed Poirot another anonymous letter, its words chilling. "Justice comes for your sins." Like the first, it was crafted from newspaper cuttings, clumsy yet menacing. Poirot examined it, his fingers tracing the uneven edges. Amateurish, yet deliberate. Who has access to this room? "Only the family and senior staff," Harrington replied. "Clara cleans daily. Blaine handles my papers. Evelyn and Beatrice come occasionally. Langford's been here for business, and Thorne wants to discuss my health. But the lock, only I have the key." Hastings, joining them, peered at the cabinets. "Could be an inside job, Poirot. That maid's awfully quiet, sneaky even, and Blaine's got those shifty eyes." Poirot's moustaches curved slightly. "Patience, Hastings. The eyes they may deceive, but the facts they do not." Lunch was served in the dining room, its long windows rattling as the wind strengthened. Conversation turned to Harrington's colonial ventures, and tensions surfaced. Lady Evelyn, over cucumber sandwiches, confided to Poirot in a low voice. "Reginald's business with Langford. It's not all above board. Shady deals in the East Indies. Our fortune depends on it, but I fear scandal." Her gaze flicked to Clara, who served silently. "That maid. She appeared 2 years ago. No references. There's something sinister about her." Beatrice, overhearing, rolled her eyes. "Mother's always theatrical. Clara's efficient, that's all. But father's cut my allowance. Says I'm too frivolous. If anyone's got a motive to pinch his corals, it's me." Her laugh was bright, but her fingers twisted her napkin tightly. Langford, lighting another cigar, leaned toward Poirot. "Harrington's holding back shares in our venture. Thinks he can squeeze me out. Business is a game of knives, Poirot. Motive enough for anyone." His smirk suggested he played that game well. Dr. Thorne, adjusting his spectacles, spoke softly. "Reginald's health is fragile. Heart strained from stress. I've prescribed digitalis, but he's reckless. His will favours the family, but I've loaned him money in the past. If he dies—" He trailed off, his face a mask of concern or guilt. Blaine, spilling his water, stammered, "Lord Harrington owes debts. I manage his accounts. Some are irregular. If he found out—" His voice faltered, and he pushed his spectacles up nervously. Clara, clearing plates, moved like a ghost, her silence louder than words. Poirot watched her closely, noting the faint tremor in her hands as she passed Harrington. A clue, perhaps, or a red herring? As afternoon faded into a stormy evening, rain lashed the windows and thunder growled in the distance. Harrington, visibly agitated, announced at tea, "I'll work in my study tonight. No disturbances, please." He patted his waistcoat where the key gleamed. Poirot felt a prickle of foreboding. "Be cautious, my lord," he said softly. "The storm, it brings more than rain." As the guests retired, the air in Coral House grew heavy, not just with the weather, but with the weight of secrets unspoken. Poirot lingered in the hall, his eyes on the coral displays, their skeletal forms casting eerie shadows. Something sinister was afoot, and the little grey cells were restless. Chapter 3. The Crime Discovered. The night at Coral House had grown restless, the storm outside mirroring the unease that had settled over its inhabitants. Rain lashed the mullioned windows, and thunder rolled like a warning drum across the Sussex Downs. Hercule Poirot, ever fastidious, had retired to his room after Lord Harrington's announcement that he would work late in his study. The little Belgian detective, clad in a silk dressing gown, stood by his window, watching lightning fracture the sky. His mind churned, piecing together the fragments of the day. The anonymous letters. Them, missing coral. The undercurrents of resentment among the guests. "Something is amiss," he murmured, his moustaches quivering slightly. "The little grey cells. They are alert." Captain Hastings, in contrast, had fallen into a deep slumber in the adjacent room, his snores a steady counterpoint to the storm's fury. But even his dreams were interrupted at precisely midnight, when a piercing scream tore through Coral House, sharp as a shard of glass. Poirot, already awake, seized his cane and threw open his door, his small frame moving with surprising agility. Hastings stumbled into the hallway, hair dishevelled, his pyjamas askew. "Good heavens, Poirot! What was that?" "The cry of distress, mon ami," Poirot replied, his green eyes sharp in the dim light of the gas lamps. "It came from below. Vite, we must investigate." They descended the grand staircase, their footsteps muffled by the thick runner, only to find the household converging in the entrance hall. Lady Evelyn Harrington, wrapped in a lace shawl, her face pale as moonlight, clutched the banister. "It came from the study," she gasped, her voice trembling. Beatrice Harrington, her bobbed hair loose, stood wide-eyed, clutching a candlestick as if it were a weapon. Victor Langford, in a smoking jacket, arrived with a scowl, his cigar absent but its scent lingering. Dr. Elias Thorne, spectacles askew, hurried from the guest wing, his medical bag in hand. Geoffrey Blaine, the secretary, hovered at the edge, his ink-stained fingers twisting nervously. Last to appear was Clara Voss, The maid, her uniform pristine despite the late hour, her black eyes unreadable as she emerged from the servants' stairs. The group converged on the study door, a heavy oak barrier carved with intricate vines. It was locked, the key presumably still in Lord Harrington's possession. Hastings pounded on it, calling, "Lord Harrington, sir, are you all right?" Silence answered, thick and ominous, broken only by the storm's distant rumble. Dr. Thorne stepped forward, his physician's instincts overriding his usual calm. "We must get inside. Reginald's heart. I fear the worst." He tested the French window visible through a nearby pane. Bolted shut, its frame undisturbed, no signs of tampering. The room, it seemed, was sealed tighter than a pharaoh's tomb. Poirot's gaze swept the scene, noting every detail. The unblemished lock, the absence of footprints on the rain-soaked lawn outside, the faint briny scent of coral that lingered even here. "An impossible crime, perhaps," he murmured, stroking his chin. "But Hercule Poirot, he does not believe in the impossible." "Break it down," Langford barked, his voice sharp with impatience. Hastings, ever the man of action, threw his shoulder against the door. Once, twice, on the third try the lock splintered, and the door swung inward with a groan. The group surged into the study, only to freeze at the sight before them. Lord Reginald Harrington lay slumped across his oak desk, his head resting on a blotter stained crimson. A dagger, its handle carved from a piece of branching coral from his own collection, protruded from his chest, blood pooling beneath him like a grotesque tide. The room was otherwise pristine. Papers neatly stacked, coral cabinets locked, the French window still bolted from within. The key to the door lay beside Harrington's lifeless hand, glinting in the lamplight. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, his voice soft but resolute. "Murder most foul. A locked room mystery, Hastings, the kind that delights and vexes the little grey cells." Dr. Thorne knelt beside the body, his fingers searching for a pulse. "He's dead," he confirmed, his face grim. "Stabbed through the heart. No signs of a struggle. Death was swift." He glanced at the dagger, its coral handle gleaming incongruously. "That's from the display case. Someone took it deliberately." Lady Evelyn stifled a sob, her hand flying to her mouth. "Reginald, who could do this?" Her eyes, wide with shock, darted to Clara Voss, who stood silently at the back, her face a mask of composure. Beatrice, trembling, dropped her candlestick with a clatter. "Father, No." Her voice broke, but Poirot noted the way her gaze flicked to Langford, as if seeking reassurance or gauging his reaction. Langford's jaw tightened, his hands clenching. "This is madness! Who was in here? The room was locked." Blaine, pale as parchment, stammered, I was in my room, sir. I heard nothing until the scream." His spectacles slipped, and he pushed them up with a shaking hand. Clara Voss spoke last, her voice low and steady. "I was in the servants' quarters, polishing silver. I heard the scream and came at once." Her eyes met Poirot's for a fleeting moment, and he sensed a challenge in their depths. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "Mesdames et messieurs, no one leaves this house. The police, they will be summoned at dawn when the storm clears. For now, we preserve the scene. Hastings, guard the door. Dr. Thorne, touch nothing further." He knelt beside the body, his movements precise as a watchmaker's. The dagger was clean of fingerprints, wiped meticulously. The blood had begun to congeal, suggesting death within the hour. The desk held a half-written letter, its ink still wet, addressed to Poirot himself. "Monsieur, I fear for my life. The thief is closer than I thought." The words ended abruptly, the pen lying where it had fallen. Poirot's gaze moved to the French window. No mud, No scratches, no sign of forced entry. The lock on the door was intact, the key unmarred. A locked room, he mused aloud, yet someone entered, struck, and left without trace. Or did they? Hastings, stationed at the door, whispered, "Poirot, could it be an outsider? A burglar, perhaps, after the corals?" Poirot shook his head. "Non, mon ami. The storm, the sealed room. These suggest an intimate crime. Our suspects are here." His eyes scanned the group. Lady Evelyn. Motive, perhaps inheritance, or an unhappy marriage. Beatrice, recently cut from her father's will. Langford, embroiled in a business dispute. Thorne, tied to unpaid loans and dangerous medicines. Blaine, nervous and possibly embezzling. And Clara Voss, the enigmatic maid with a foreign air and a grudge unspoken. A faint clue caught Poirot's eye. A single muddy footprint near the French window, inside the room where no rain could reach. "Curieux," he murmured. "A red herring, or a key to the puzzle?" Lady Evelyn clutched her shawl tighter. "What do we do now, Monsieur Poirot?" He straightened, his small frame radiating authority. "We observe, we question, we think. The truth it hides, but not from Hercule Poirot. For now, return to your rooms, but know that I watch, and the little grey cells, they never sleep." As the group dispersed, thunder crashed overhead, and Poirot's gaze lingered on the coral dagger. Its delicate form a stark contrast to its deadly purpose. The storm was not the only force gathering strength tonight. Chapter 4. Initial interrogations dawn broke over Coral House, but the light was feeble, filtered through a sky bruised with storm clouds. The air inside the estate felt heavy, as if the walls themselves mourned Lord Reginald Harrington's brutal end. Hercule Poirot, impeccable in a tailored suit despite the early hour, stood in the drawing-room, his small frame radiating authority. The room, with its velvet drapes and polished walnut furniture, was a stark contrast to the grim task at hand. The coral displays, ever present, gleamed faintly in their glass cases, their intricate forms like silent witnesses to the night's tragedy. Captain Hastings, bleary-eyed but resolute, stood by Poirot's side, his notepad open. "A ghastly business, Poirot," he muttered. "A man murdered in a locked room, dagger in his chest, no way in or out. It's impossible." Poirot's green eyes glinted, his moustaches curving slightly. "Non, mon ami. Nothing is impossible for Hercule Poirot. The locked room, it is a puzzle, and puzzles have solutions. We begin with order and method." He clapped his hands sharply, summoning the household. "Mesdames et messieurs, assemblez-vous. The investigation, it commences." The suspects gathered, their faces a gallery of grief, fear, and suspicion. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her auburn hair pinned hastily, sat rigidly on a chaise longue, her lace handkerchief clutched tightly. Beatrice Harrington, her modern flair subdued by red-rimmed eyes, hovered near her mother, her fingers twisting a silk scarf. Victor Langford, his sharp features taut, leaned against a bookcase, his usual swagger muted. Dr. Elias Thorne, spectacles polished to a shine, stood with his medical bag, his expression one of professional concern, or practiced calm. Geoffrey Blaine, the secretary, fidgeted near the fireplace, his ink-stained hands betraying his nerves. Clara Voss, the maid, stood apart, her raven hair severe under her cap, her black eyes meeting no one's gaze. Poirot paced slowly, his polished shoes silent on the Aubusson rug. "First we establish alibis. Where were you at midnight, when the scream alerted us to Lord Harrington's fate?" Lady Evelyn spoke first, her voice brittle. "I was in my bedroom, alone, reading. The storm kept me awake." Her eyes flickered to Clara, a shadow of distrust passing over her face. Beatrice tossed her head, her bobbed hair swaying. "I was in bed too, with a novel, The Great Gatsby. I heard the scream and rushed out." Her voice wavered, but her glance at Langford was fleeting, almost guilty. Langford crossed his arms, his tone clipped. "Billiard room, smoking a cigar. Alone, naturally. Nobody joins me at that hour." His smirk was faint, but Poirot noted the tension in his jaw. Dr. Thorne adjusted his spectacles. "I was in my guest room, preparing medicines for tomorrow. I keep late hours when patients need me." His kindly air seemed strained, his fingers tightening on his bag. Blaine stammered, pushing up his spectacles. I was upstairs balancing accounts in my room. The ledgers, they take time." His voice cracked, and he glanced nervously at the floor. Clara Voss, last to speak, kept her tone even. "I was in the servants' quarters, polishing silver for tomorrow's breakfast. The scream brought me upstairs." Her composure was flawless, but Poirot caught a slight tremor in her hands as she smoothed her apron. "No witnesses," Poirot mused aloud, his voice soft but piercing. "Convenient, no? Now let us examine the scene once more." He led the group back to the study, where Harrington's body remained, covered now with a sheet at Poirot's insistence. The room was untouched since the discovery. The oak desk, the locked coral cabinets, the bolted French window, the key beside the body. The coral-handled dagger, its blade cleaned of fingerprints, lay on a cloth, examined but not removed. Poirot knelt, his eyes scanning the floor. The muddy footprint near the French window, inside the sealed room, intrigued him. "Curieux," he said. "Mud where no rain could enter. A clue or a deception?" He tested the window's bolt, firm, unmarred. The door's lock, too, showed no scratches, and the key fit perfectly. Hastings, peering over his shoulder, whispered, "Could someone have slipped in before Harrington locked himself in?" Poirot shook his head. "The key was inside, mon ami, and the letter, Harrington's warning to me, suggests he feared an immediate threat." He retrieved the half-written note from the desk. "Monsieur, I fear for my life. The thief is closer than I thought." The ink, still fresh, hinted at urgency. A new clue emerged as Poirot searched the desk's drawers. A hidden letter, tucked beneath a ledger. In Harrington's hand, it read, "To my solicitor, alter my will. Beatrice is to receive nothing until she ends her dalliance with Langford." Poirot's eyes narrowed. A motive for Mademoiselle Beatrice, perhaps, or for Monsieur Langford. Beatrice gasped, overhearing, "That's not fair. Father was always meddling in my life." Her cheeks flushed, but her eyes darted to a corner where Poirot spotted a crumpled handkerchief embroidered with her initials lying near the desk. "That's mine," she admitted, "but I didn't drop it here. Someone must have taken it." "A red herring, perhaps," Poirot said, pocketing the handkerchief, "or a clumsy attempt to mislead." Langford snorted. "You're barking up the wrong tree, Poirot. I was with Harrington earlier. Business talk. I left him alive." His tone was defiant, but his fingers twitched, betraying unease. Dr. Thorne spoke up. "I checked Reginald's heart medication yesterday. Digitalis. Dangerous in excess. If someone tampered—" He trailed off, his gaze shifting to Clara, who remained silent. Blaine, sweating, blurted, "I handled his accounts, not his medicines, but there were irregularities, debts he didn't want known." His eyes flicked to Lady Evelyn, who stiffened. Lady Evelyn's voice was sharp. "Reginald's business was his own, but that maid, Clara, she's been too close to his study, cleaning those corals. I don't trust her." Her accusation hung in the air, unanswered. Clara's lips parted, but she said nothing, her eyes locking with Poirot's for a moment. He noted her restraint, her foreign accent barely audible in her brief responses. A woman of secrets, he thought. Poirot turned to the coral cabinets, their locks intact. The thief, perhaps, became a murderer, but how to enter a locked room? He tested the window again, then the walls, tapping lightly. A faint hollow sound behind a bookcase caught his ear, but he said nothing, filing it away. Hastings, ever eager, pointed to the footprint. "That mud! It's fresh! Someone tracked it in, Poirot. I'm sure of it." "Perhaps," Poirot replied, "but why only one? And inside a sealed room? We must think deeper, mon ami." He addressed the group. "Return to your duties, but know this. Hercule Poirot sees all. The truth it cannot hide." As the suspects dispersed, Poirot lingered, his gaze on the coral dagger. Its delicate craftsmanship belied its deadly use. A clue surfaced in his memory. Clara's access to the display cases, her daily cleaning. Could she have taken the dagger? Yet her composure suggested calculation, not panic. Outside, the storm raged on, rain drumming a relentless rhythm. Poirot turned to Hastings. "We have motives aplenty, inheritance, revenge, debt, love betrayed. But the method? C'est la clé. We must find how death entered a locked room." As they left the study, sealing it for the police, Poirot's little grey cells hummed with possibilities. The footprint, the handkerchief, the hidden letter, clues or distractions. And that hollow sound behind the bookcase. What did it conceal? Chapter 5. Clues emerge. The storm over Coral House showed no sign of abating, its relentless rain drumming against the ancient stone walls, as if urging the secrets within to spill forth. Midday light, grey and sullen, filtered through the drawing-room's heavy drapes, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with the ghosts of suspicion. Hercule Poirot, his suit as pristine as ever, stood before the gathered household, his small frame commanding the room with quiet authority. His green eyes, sharp as cut emeralds, scanned the faces before him, each a potential murderer, each hiding truths behind their carefully crafted masks. Captain Hastings, ever loyal, stood at Poirot's side, his notepad filled with scribbled observations. "It's a devil of a puzzle, Poirot," he whispered. "That locked room. No way in, no way out, and yet Harrington's dead. The footprint, the handkerchief, where do we start?" Poirot's moustaches curved slightly, a sign of his mind at work. "We start, mon ami, with method. The clues, they speak, but we must listen carefully. The truth, it is buried, but not beyond reach." He turned to the group, his voice calm yet piercing. "Mesdames et messieurs, we continue. The murder of Lord Harrington demands answers, and Hercule Poirot will find them." The suspect sat uneasily. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her lace handkerchief now a crumpled relic of her composure. Beatrice Harrington, her modern vivacity dulled by grief or guilt. Victor Langford, his sharp features taut with impatience. Dr. Elias Thorne, his spectacles glinting as he clutched his medical bag. Geoffrey Blaine, his nervous fidgeting more pronounced, and Clara Voss, the maid, her raven hair stark against her pale uniform, her black eyes betraying nothing. Poirot began with the study, returning to the scene of the crime with Hastings and Dr. Thorne, whom he permitted to observe for medical insight. The room remained sealed since dawn, its air thick with the scent of old leather and the faint briny tang of coral. Lord Harrington's body, still covered, lay slumped at the desk, the coral-handled dagger now catalogued as evidence. Poirot's gaze swept the space. The bolted French window, the unmarred lock, the key beside the body, the single muddy footprint near the window, an anomaly in a sealed room. He knelt, examining the desk more closely. A faint scratch on its underside caught his eye, and with delicate precision he pressed it, A panel clicked open, revealing a hidden safe, its door ajar. Inside, a velvet pouch was empty, but a faint residue of coral dust glittered. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured. "Another theft. Perhaps the motive for murder." Hastings peered over. "More corals gone? This thief's bold, striking even now." Poirot nodded. "Or clever, mon ami. The safe was. Opened after death, I suspect. See the blood undisturbed." He closed the panel, marking it for later. A new clue emerged on the mantel. A carriage clock, its hands frozen at 11:45 p.m., though the thunder of the scream had rung at midnight. "Curieux," Poirot said, tapping the glass. "Stopped deliberately, or broken in haste." He noted its position far from the desk, unlikely to have been struck during the murder. Dr. Thorne, observing, ventured, "The clock could indicate time of death, but my examination suggests Harrington died closer to midnight. No rigor yet. Too soon." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Time, it is a slippery thing. We shall see." Returning to the drawing room, Poirot resumed interrogations, his questions sharper now. "Lady Evelyn, you spoke of shady business. Did Lord Harrington share details?" She hesitated, her fingers twisting her pearls. "Only that Langford's ventures in the East Indies were questionable. Reginald feared exposure. I urged him to cut ties, but he wouldn't." Her gaze flicked to Clara, who stood silently serving tea. That maid. She was always near his study, too near. Clara's hands paused, but her voice remained steady. "I cleaned as ordered, milady, nothing more." Poirot noted her accent again. A trace of German, perhaps, or Prussian. A clue to her past? Beatrice, emboldened by her mother's accusation, spoke up. "Father was furious about my friendship with Victor. He threatened to disinherit me." Her eyes met Langford's, and a flush crept up her cheeks. "I admit, I took a coral once. Petty rebellion. But murder? Never." Langford's smirk was gone, replaced by a scowl. "Harrington was squeezing me out of profits. I argued with him yesterday, yes, but I left him alive. Check the billiard room. My cigar ash proves I was there." Poirot recalled a faint ash trail near the study door, a possible red herring. Dr. Thorne cleared his throat. "I prescribed digitalis for Reginald's heart. A vial's missing from my bag. Noticed this morning. If someone misused it." His voice faltered, his eyes darting to Clara, then away. Blaine, sweating, blurted, "I saw Clara near the study yesterday. She was lingering, not cleaning." His accusation drew gasps, but Clara's expression didn't waver. "I was dusting the hall," she replied coolly. "The corals require care." Poirot noted her precision, her lack of fear, an act or innocence. A twist emerged during a private moment with Beatrice. Pulling Poirot aside, she whispered, "I lied about the coral. I took it to sell, for Victor. He's in debt, and father knew, but I swear, I didn't kill him." Her eyes brimmed with tears, but Poirot sensed a half-truth. "Truth, mademoiselle, is not partial," he said gently. "What else do you hide?" She bit her lip, then confessed, "Victor and we're engaged, secretly. Father would have stopped it." A motive deepened, love, money, and defiance. Poirot returned to the study alone, his mind whirring. The hollow sound behind the bookcase from the previous day nagged at him. He tapped again, confirming a concealed space, but the bookcase was locked, its mechanism hidden. A secret passage, perhaps, he mused. Yet the footprint and ash suggested misdirection. A red herring surfaced, a scrap of paper in the fireplace, half-burned, with Clara's name in Harrington's hand. Clara knows too much. Was it evidence, or planted to frame her? Poirot pocketed it, his little grey cells buzzing. Hastings, rejoining him, pointed to the ash near the door. "Langford's cigar, Poirot. He lied about staying in the billiard room. Or someone wishes us to think so, Poirot replied. The ash. It is too convenient. As evening approached, the storm's intensity grew, mirroring the tension within Coral House. Poirot gathered the suspects once more. The clues accumulate. A hidden safe, a stopped clock, a secret engagement, a missing vial. But the locked room, it holds the key. Who among you knows its secrets? The group exchanged wary glances. Silence, their only reply. Clara's eyes met Poirot's again, a flicker of defiance or fear in their depths. Lady Evelyn clutched her shawl. Beatrice avoided Langford's gaze. Thorne adjusted his spectacles, and Blaine's hands shook. Poirot turned to Hastings. Mon ami, we are close, yet far. The murderer is clever, but Hercule Poirot is cleverer. Tomorrow, we dig deeper. Chapter 6. Red herrings abound. The storm over Coral House raged on, its relentless downpour a fitting backdrop to the turmoil within. By late afternoon, the air inside the estate was thick with suspicion, each glance between its inhabitants laced with unspoken accusations. Hercule Poirot, his suit immaculate despite the chaos, stood in the library, a cavernous room lined with leather-bound tomes and overlooked by a coral display that seemed to pulse with secrets. His small, precise hands clasped behind his back, he paced slowly, his green eyes darting as if the books themselves might whisper the truth. Captain Hastings, ever the faithful shadow, hovered nearby, his notepad now a chaotic jumble of clues and theories. "Poirot, it's a muddle," he exclaimed, running a hand through his dishevelled hair. "The footprint, the handkerchief, the hidden safe, that stopped clock. Someone's playing games with us, aren't they?" Poirot's moustaches tilted in a faint smile. "Oui, mon ami. The murderer is clever, scattering red herrings like leaves in this storm. But Hercule Poirot, he sees through the fog. We must separate the true from the false." He turned to the gathered suspects, summoned once more to the library. "Mesdames et messieurs, the net tightens. Let us examine the threads of this mystery." The group assembled uneasily. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her elegance fraying like her crumpled shawl. Beatrice Harrington, her modern spark, dimmed by fear or guilt. Victor Langford, his sharp gaze restless. Dr. Elias Thorne, his spectacles glinting with nervous energy. Geoffrey Blaine, his ink-stained fingers twitching. And Clara Voss, the maid, her black eyes as unreadable as ever, her posture rigid in her starched uniform. Poirot began with a new discovery from the study, where he had returned earlier to probe further. Behind a portrait of a stern Harrington ancestor, he had found a folded note, its edges singed as if someone had tried to burn it. Written in an unfamiliar hand, it read, "Reginald, your sins will find you out. Leave Coral House or pay the price." Unlike the newspaper-cut letters, this was handwritten, its ink smudged but legible. "A second threat," Poirot said, holding it aloft. "Who wrote this, and why hide it?" Lady Evelyn gasped, her hand flying to her pearls. "Another letter? Reginald never mentioned this one." Her voice trembled, but her eyes darted to Clara, who stood silently pouring tea. Beatrice frowned, her scarf twisting in her hands. "It's not father's writing. Could it be a servant's?" Her glance at Clara was pointed, but Poirot noted a flicker of doubt in her expression. Langford scoffed, lighting a cigar despite the library's confines. "More nonsense. Someone's trying to scare us off. I say it's a rival. Harrington had enemies in the trade." His tone was dismissive, but his fingers tightened on the matchbox. Dr. Thorne adjusted his spectacles, peering at the note. "The ink's fresh, recently written, but the hand? It's not Reginald's. I'd know. I've seen his prescriptions." His voice was steady, but his gaze lingered on Blaine. Blaine, startled, stammered, I write for Lord Harrington, but that's not mine. I was in my room, not the study." His spectacles slipped, and he pushed them up, his hands shaking. Clara, setting down the teapot, spoke softly. "I clean the study, sir, but I don't write letters. My duties are clear." Her accent, Prussian Poirot now suspected, carried a faint edge, and her eyes met his with a steady challenge. Poirot pocketed the note, his mind whirring. A red herring, perhaps, to distract from the true threat. Let us test the alibis further. He turned to Langford. "Monsieur, your cigar ash near the study door. How did it travel from the billiard room?" Langford's jaw tightened. "I told you. I smoked there all evening. Someone must have carried it, trying to frame me." His defiance rang hollow, and Poirot noted a bead of sweat on his brow. A new red herring surfaced when Hastings, searching the study earlier, found a pearl earring beneath the desk, its design matching Lady Evelyn's. "Lady Evelyn," Poirot said, presenting it, "how did this come to be here, in a locked room?" She paled, touching her ear instinctively. I must have lost it earlier, when I visited Reginald to discuss finances. I didn't notice until now." Her voice wavered, and Poirot wondered if it was grief or deceit. Beatrice interjected, "Mother's always dropping things. It means nothing." But her defence seemed forced, her eyes avoiding her mother's. Poirot's attention shifted to the stopped clock, its hands still frozen at 11:45 p.m. He examined it closely, noting a faint dent on its brass frame. "Not broken by accident," he murmured. "Someone struck it, perhaps to mislead us about the time of death." He glanced at Thorne. "Doctor, you said death was near midnight. Could digitalis delay signs of death?" Thorne hesitated. "Possibly, but it's unlikely. The stab wound was fatal, immediate. The clock, it's a distraction." His fingers tightened on his bag, and Poirot noted the gesture. A complication arose when Poirot, revisiting Clara's alibi, questioned the butler, Parsons, in private. The stiff old man admitted seeing Clara leave the servants' quarters just before midnight, claiming to fetch water from the kitchen. "Odd, sir," Parsons said, "as the kitchen's well stocked. She was near the study corridor." A damning clue, or another misdirection? Confronted, Clara's composure held. "I needed fresh water for the morning trays. The storm made the pipes sluggish." Her explanation was plausible, but Poirot's little grey cells buzzed with doubt. Her access to the coral dagger, her proximity to the study, too convenient. Another twist emerged during a quiet moment with Dr. Thorne. Pulling Poirot aside, he confessed, "I didn't mention earlier, but Reginald asked me about poisons last week, specifically rare toxins from the colonies. I thought it odd, but he was curious about his coral's origins." Thorne's eyes darted nervously. "If someone used my digitalis..." Poirot's gaze sharpened. "And the missing vial, Doctor? Where is it?" Thorne flushed. I don't know. It was in my bag yesterday." A motive deepened, negligence or complicity? Poirot returned to the study alone, drawn to the bookcase where he'd heard the hollow sound. Pressing its panels, he found no mechanism, but a faint draft suggested a hidden passage. "The locked room, it is not so locked," he murmured. Yet the absence of tracks or tools baffled him. A final red herring surfaced, a smudge of ink on the coral dagger's handle, matching the stains on Blaine's fingers. Confronted, Blaine paled. "I handled the display case last week, cataloguing corals for Lord Harrington. It's old ink, I swear." His panic was genuine, but Poirot wondered if it masked guilt. As evening fell, the storm's fury peaked. lightning illuminating Coral House's eerie corridors. Poirot gathered the suspects once more. The clues multiply: a hidden note, a lost earring, a stopped clock, ink on a dagger. Yet the murderer weaves a web of deception. Who among you knows more than they say? Silence answered, broken only by the rain's relentless drum. Clara's eyes held Poirot's longest, a flicker of something, defiance, fear, passing through them. Lady Evelyn clutched her shawl. Beatrice avoided Langford's gaze, Thorne's spectacles glinted, and Blaine's hands trembled. Chapter 7. Deepening Investigation. The storm over Coral House had settled into a relentless drizzle by the second day, its grey veil cloaking the estate in an air of foreboding. Inside, the tension was palpable, as if the very walls held their breath, awaiting the next revelation. Hercule Poirot, his suit as pristine as ever, stood in the library, its towering shelves and coral displays casting long shadows in the dim light. His small frame radiated quiet determination, his green eyes sharp as they surveyed the gathered suspects, each a piece in the puzzle of Lord Reginald Harrington's murder. Captain Hastings, ever at Poirot's side, clutched his notepad, his face a mix of frustration and awe. "Poirot, it's a devil of a case," he whispered. "The hidden safe, the stopped clock, that singed note. Every clue seems to point somewhere, yet nowhere. Are we any closer?" Poirot's moustaches tilted in a subtle smile. "Patience, mon ami. The truth, it is like a coral reef, complex, hidden, but revealed with care. We deepen our investigation, and the little grey cells, they will not fail." He turned to the group, his voice calm yet commanding. "Mesdames et messieurs, the murder of Lord Harrington demands answers. Let us probe further into the shadows." The suspects gathered, their faces etched with strain. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her elegance fraying like her lace shawl. Beatrice Harrington, her modern spark dulled by suspicion. Victor Langford, his sharp features taut with defiance. Dr. Elias Thorne, his spectacles catching the light as he shifted uneasily. Geoffrey Blaine, his ink-stained hands twitching nervously. And Clara Voss, the maid, her raven hair severe, her black eyes a fortress of secrets. Poirot began with a new line of inquiry, focusing on the coral-handled dagger. Its origins in the display case a persistent puzzle. "Mademoiselle Voss," he said, his gaze locking onto Clara, "you clean the coral cabinets daily. Did you notice the dagger missing before the murder?" Clara's posture stiffened, but her voice remained steady. "No, sir. The case was locked as always. I only dust the glass." Her Prussian accent, now unmistakable to Poirot, carried a faint edge, and he noted the way her fingers smoothed her apron, a nervous tick perhaps. Lady Evelyn interjected, her voice sharp. "She's always in that study, too close to Reginald's things. I've seen her linger, as if spying." Her accusation drew murmurs, but Clara's expression didn't waver. Poirot raised a hand. "We shall verify, madame. For now, let us explore another clue." He led the group to the study, still sealed save for his inspections. The room's air was heavy, the briny scent of coral mingling with the faint, metallic tang of blood. The covered body of Lord Harrington remained at the desk, the coral dagger now in a sealed box, its ink smudge a lingering question. Poirot's attention returned to the bookcase, where the hollow sound had intrigued him. With Hastings' help, he shifted the heavy oak structure, revealing a faint outline in the panelling, a concealed door, locked tight. "Mon Dieu," Poirot murmured. "A passage, perhaps, but sealed. How does it open?" He tapped again, but no mechanism yielded, only deepening the locked room mystery. A critical clue emerged, when Hastings, searching the servants' quarters at Poirot's request, found a small diary hidden beneath Clara's mattress. Its pages, written in a precise hand, detailed grievances against Harrington. He ruined my family, bankrupted my father in the colonies. His corals are my birthright. The final entry, dated the day before the murder, read, "Justice will be mine." Poirot's eyes narrowed. Mademoiselle Voss, or perhaps von Strauss. A motive of revenge, non? Confronted in the library, Clara paled but held her ground. "That diary is private, sir. Yes, my name is von Strauss. My father was a Prussian merchant, ruined by Harrington's deals, but I did not kill him." Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of fear. Beatrice, seizing the moment, cried, "She's lying! That diary proves she hated father!" Yet her own guilt, her secret engagement and coral theft hung over her, and Poirot noted her defensiveness. A complication arose when Dr. Thorne's alibi cracked under scrutiny. The butler, Parsons, admitted seeing Thorne near the study corridor at 11:30 p.m., not in his room as claimed. "He was carrying his bag, sir," Parsons said. "Looked hurried." Thorne, flustered, adjusted his spectacles. I was checking the corridor for leaks. The storm, you see." His explanation was weak, and Poirot sensed a deeper truth. Another red herring surfaced, a smudged ledger in Blaine's room, showing forged entries to cover Harrington's debts. Confronted, Blaine stammered, "I adjusted figures to protect him. He owed thousands. Creditors were circling." His panic suggested desperation, but was it murderous? Poirot tested a theory about the locked room, examining the French window's bolt with a magnifying glass. A faint scratch suggested it could be manipulated from outside with a thin tool, but no such tool was found, and the muddy footprint remained an anomaly. A clever trick, perhaps, Poirot mused, but incomplete. A twist deepened when Langford, pressed about his cigar ash, admitted visiting the study at 11 p.m. "We argued about shares," he growled. "I left him alive, I swear." Yet his matchbox, found near the study door, bore a fresh burn mark, contradicting his timeline. Poirot returned to the diary, its entries suggesting Clara's knowledge of rare poisons from her father's colonial trade. "Mademoiselle," he said, "your past speaks of toxins. Did you know of digitalis, perhaps from Dr. Thorne's vial?" Clara's eyes flashed. "I know of plants, sir, but I used none." Her denial was firm, but Poirot filed it away. As evening descended, the drizzle turned to mist, cloaking Coral House in an eerie haze. Poirot gathered the suspects once more. The clues grow. A secret passage, a diary of vengeance, forged ledgers, a scratched bolt. Yet the red herrings multiply, obscuring the truth. Who among you hides the key to this locked room? The group exchanged wary glances, silence heavy as the fog outside. Clara's gaze held Poirot's longest, a challenge in its depths. Lady Evelyn clutched her shawl. Beatrice avoided Langford's eyes. Thorne's spectacles glinted nervously, and Blaine's hands shook uncontrollably. Chapter 8. Complications and Twists. The second evening at Coral House draped the estate in a shroud of mist, the storm's fury softening into an eerie calm that seemed to whisper of secrets yet to be unveiled. Inside, the air was thick with tension, each creak of the ancient floors amplifying the weight of Lord Reginald Harrington's murder. Hercule Poirot, his suit as impeccable as ever, stood in the study, his small frame a beacon of resolve amidst the chaos. The room, still sealed save for his inspections, held its secrets tightly. The bolted French window, the unmarred lock, the coral-handled dagger, and the single muddy footprint that mocked the locked room puzzle. Captain Hastings, his notepad now a tangle of frantic scribbles paced nearby. "Poirot! It's maddening," he exclaimed. "The diary, the hidden passage, the ink smudge, every clue points to someone, yet no one. Are we chasing ghosts?" Poirot's green eyes glinted, his moustaches curving faintly. "Non, mon ami. No ghosts, only human deceit. The truth, it hides behind a veil of cleverness, but Hercule Poirot will tear it down." He turned to the gathered suspects, summoned to the drawing-room for further questioning. "Mesdames et messieurs, the investigation deepens, and the lies, they begin to unravel." The suspects assembled, their faces a gallery of strain and suspicion. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her elegance fraying like her crumpled shawl. Beatrice Harrington, her modern spark flickering under scrutiny. Victor Langford, his sharp features taut with defiance. Dr. Elias Thorne, his spectacles glinting nervously. Geoffrey Blaine, his ink-stained hands trembling. And Clara Voss, the maid, her black eyes a fortress, her posture rigid as ever. Poirot began with a bombshell, addressing Dr. Thorne. "Doctor, you have examined the body again at my request. Tell us what you found." Thorne cleared his throat, his voice unsteady. I made a mistake earlier. The stab wound, it was post-mortem. Harrington was already dead when the dagger struck. The true cause of death was poison, likely digitalis from my missing vial, administered hours before." A gasp rippled through the room, and Poirot's eyes narrowed, sensing a shift in the puzzle. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, "a twist most intriguing. The dagger, then, was a deception, a red herring to mask the poison. But how was it delivered in a locked room?" He turned to the group. "This changes everything. Who had access to the digitalis?" Thorne flushed, his spectacles slipping. "The vial was in my bag, but anyone could have taken it. I kept it in my guest room, unsecured." His admission drew sharp looks, particularly from Lady Evelyn, who clutched her pearls tightly. Beatrice, her voice trembling, cried, "Poison! That's monstrous! Father didn't deserve this!" Yet her eyes darted to Langford, as if seeking reassurance, or fearing his involvement. Langford's jaw tightened. "Don't look at me, Beatrice. I argued with Harrington, yes, but poison? That's not my style." His defiance rang hollow, and Poirot noted a faint tremor in his hand, clutching a fresh cigar. Blaine, sweating profusely, stammered, I don't know about medicines. I only handled papers." His panic was palpable, but Poirot wondered if it masked deeper guilt. Clara Voss, silent until now, spoke softly. "I know nothing of poison, sir. My duties are cleaning, not doctoring." Her Prussian accent was clear, and Poirot caught a flicker of defiance in her gaze, as if daring him to press further. A new clue emerged when Poirot, revisiting the study, examined the coral display case. A tiny vial, hidden behind a branching coral, bore traces of a powdery residue. Digitalis, he suspected. "Curieux," he said, pocketing it carefully. "Place to implicate or overlooked by the killer." The vial's position suggested someone with intimate knowledge of the case. Clara, perhaps, or another with access. A major twist unfolded when Beatrice, pulling Poirot aside in the library, confessed further. "I lied about the coral theft," she whispered, her eyes brimming. "I didn't sell it. I gave it to Victor to settle his debts. He's desperate, Monsieur Poirot. Father threatened to ruin him." Her admission deepened Langford's motive, but her tears suggested loyalty, or complicity. Poirot's gaze softened. "Mademoiselle, truth is your ally. Did Monsieur Langford act on this desperation?" She shook her head fiercely. "No, he wouldn't kill. But he was near the study that night, later than he said." Her confession cracked Langford's alibi further, and Poirot filed it away. Another complication arose when Hastings, searching Langford's room at Poirot's behest, found a crumpled note in his waste bin. "Meet me at 11:30. Study. Urgent." Signed with Harrington's initials, it contradicted Langford's claim of leaving at 11 to... Confronted, Langford paled. "I didn't see him after 11. That note, I never got it." His denial was frantic, and Poirot sensed a lie, or a frame. A red herring surfaced when the butler, Parsons, reported seeing Clara near the study again. This time carrying a tray with a glass of water at 11:45 p.m. "Odd, sir," Parsons said. "No one requested water." Clara, questioned, insisted, "It was for the morning trays, as I said. The storm delayed preparations." Her explanation held, but Poirot's doubts grew, her diary's venomous words echoing in his mind. Poirot tested the locked room theory again, focusing on the concealed door behind the bookcase. With a locksmith's tool borrowed from the estate's groundskeeper, he probed the panel, finding a hidden latch, but it was rusted, unused for years. "The passage exists," he murmured, "but not the answer. The poison? It was delivered another way." A final twist emerged when Thorne admitted a past connection to Clara. "Years ago, in the colonies," he confided to Poirot, "I knew her father, von Strauss. He was ruined by Harrington's deals. I helped her get this job out of pity." His revelation tied Clara's motive to Thorne, suggesting a possible conspiracy. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Doctor, you withheld this. Why?" Thorne flushed. "I feared it would look suspicious. I'm innocent, I swear." His plea was earnest, but Poirot wondered if pity masked darker intent. As night fell, the mist thickened, cloaking Coral House in an otherworldly haze. Poirot gathered the suspects in the drawing room. The puzzle shifts. Poison, not a dagger, killed Lord Harrington. A hidden vial, a secret meeting, a past connection, all point to a clever killer. Who among you weaves this web? Silence answered, broken only by the drip of rain. Clara's gaze held Poirot's, unflinching. Lady Evelyn's hands trembled. Beatrice avoided Langford's eyes. Thorne's spectacles glinted, and Blaine's fingers twitched uncontrollably. Chapter 9. The Revelation. Twilight draped Coral House in a veil of mystery, the mist outside weaving ghostly tendrils around its ancient walls. Inside, the drawing room was a stage set for truth, its heavy velvet drapes drawn back to reveal the fading light. Hercule Poirot, his suit as impeccable as ever, stood at the room's centre, his small frame radiating an authority that silenced the restless murmurs of the gathered suspects. The coral displays, ever present, cast eerie shadows, their skeletal forms seeming to pulse with the secrets they had guarded. Captain Hastings, his notepad now a testament to the case's complexity, stood by Poirot's side, his eyes wide with anticipation. "Poirot, is it time?" he whispered. "Have you cracked it? The locked room? The poison? The dagger?" Poirot's green eyes gleamed, his moustaches curving in a quiet smile. "Oui, mon ami. The little grey cells, they have laboured, and the truth, it is revealed. The puzzle of Lord Harrington's murder, it is no longer a mystery." He turned to the suspects, his voice calm yet commanding. "Mesdames et messieurs, assemblez-vous. The murderer is among us, and Hercule Poirot will name them." The group gathered, their faces a mosaic of fear, defiance, and curiosity. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her elegance strained, clutching her shawl. Beatrice Harrington, her modern spark flickering with hope. Victor Langford, his sharp features tense. Dr. Elias Thorne, his spectacles glinting nervously. Geoffrey Blaine, his ink-stained hands trembling. And Clara Voss, The maid, her black eyes unreadable, her posture rigid as stone. Poirot began, his voice deliberate, each word a step toward revelation. The murder of Lord Reginald Harrington was no ordinary crime. A locked room, a coral dagger, a poison, digitalis, administered before a post-mortem stab. The clues were many: a muddy footprint, a stopped clock, a hidden safe, a singed note, a diary of vengeance. Yet many were red herrings designed to mislead. Let us unravel the truth. He paced slowly, his hands clasped behind his back. First, the method. Lord Harrington died not from the dagger, but from poison, as Dr. Thorne confirmed. The digitalis, stolen from his vial, was delivered in a locked room. How? Not by drink, for no glass was found. Not by injection, for no mark existed. But consider the keyhole. A small aperture, overlooked, a poisoned dart, blown through a hollow coral branch, could deliver death silently from the corridor. Gasps rippled through the room. Hastings blinked. "A dart, Poirot! Through the keyhole! That's ingenious!" Poirot nodded. "Oui, but it required knowledge of rare toxins and precise aim. The dart, it dissolved in the blood, leaving only a trace of digitalis. The dagger, thrust post-mortem, was a deception to suggest a violent struggle." He turned to the French window. The bolt, scratched faintly, suggested tampering, but it was a red herring. The true entry was a secret passage behind the bookcase. He gestured to the study, where he had earlier forced the concealed door open with the groundskeeper's tool. The passage, rusted but functional, leads from the servants' quarters. It was used to enter, stab the body and exit, locking the door with a duplicate key. Lady Evelyn gasped. "A passage? But who knew of it?" Poirot's gaze settled on Clara Voss. Mademoiselle Clara von Strauss, the maid, whose true name and past reveal her motive. Her diary spoke of vengeance, her father, a Prussian merchant, ruined by Harrington's colonial deals. She came to Coral House, recommended by Dr. Thorne, to seek justice. Her knowledge of colonial poisons, learned from her father, made the dart possible. Clara's eyes flashed, but she remained silent, her composure a fortress. Beatrice cried, "Clara, but she's just a maid." Poirot raised a hand. "Non, mademoiselle. She is a woman wronged. Her hatred festering. The diary, the vial behind the coral, her midnight errand near the study, all point to her. She blew the dart through the keyhole, entered, via the passage, staged the stabbing, and locked the door, leaving the key to deceive." Langford snorted. "What about my cigar ash? The note in my room?" "Red herrings," Poirot said. "The ash, scattered to implicate you. The note, forged to confuse. Mademoiselle Beatrice, your handkerchief and stolen coral, distractions perhaps planted by Clara to shift blame. Lady Evelyn's earring, dropped earlier, was another misdirection. The stopped clock, dented to suggest 11:45, misled us from the midnight poisoning. Thorne adjusted his spectacles. But my vial, how did she get it? You, doctor, were negligent, Poirot said. Your pity for Clara, from knowing her father, led you to secure her this position. Your unsecured bag allowed her to steal the digitalis. Your lie about the corridor was to protect her, non? Thorne paled. I meant no harm. I didn't know, Blaine stammered. And my ink, the ledger. Innocent errors, Poirot replied. Your ink on the dagger was from handling the coral case earlier. Your forged ledger, a desperate act to protect Harrington, not to kill. Poirot turned to Clara. Mademoiselle, you planned meticulously. The anonymous letters cut from newspapers stirred fear. The handwritten note, your mistake, revealed your hand, the muddy footprint you placed to confuse. But the little grey cells, they see through your web. Clara's composure cracked, her voice low but fierce. He deserved it. Harrington ruined my family, drove my father to his grave. I took nothing but justice. Her confession, raw and unyielding, silenced the room. Poirot nodded gravely. "Justice, mademoiselle, is not yours to deliver. The law will decide your fate." Hastings whispered, "By Jove, Poirot, you've done it. The dart, the passage, it's brilliant." Poirot's eyes softened. "The truth, mon ami, is always simple when the fog clears." The red herrings, footprint, ash earring were clever, but the motive and method betrayed the killer. As Clara was restrained by the butler, awaiting the police, the room fell silent, the weight of truth settling over Coral House. The coral displays, once ominous, now seemed mere relics of a tragedy unveiled. Chapter 10. Justice served dawn broke over Coral House, the mist lifting to reveal a sky streaked with pale gold, as if the estate itself exhaled after the storm's long grip. The air was crisp, the ancient oaks along the drive glistening with dew, but within the Tudor walls a sombre weight lingered. The revelation of Clara Voss's guilt, her poisoned dart, her secret passage, her vengeance, had shaken the household. Yet the truth brought clarity, if not peace. Hercule Poirot, his suit as impeccable as ever, stood in the entrance hall, his small frame a beacon of calm amidst the aftermath. The coral displays, once ominous, now seemed mere relics, their skeletal forms stripped of menace by the light of truth. Captain Hastings, his notepad tucked away, stood beside Poirot, his honest face a mix of relief and melancholy. "By Jove, Poirot," he said softly, "you've done it again. Clara's confession, the dart through the keyhole, it's brilliant but grim. What now?" Poirot's green eyes softened, his moustaches tilting in a reflective smile. "Now, mon ami, we ensure justice is served, and the wounds of Coral House begin to heal. The little grey cells, they have triumphed, but the heart, it feels the cost." He turned to the gathered household, summoned for a final reckoning. "Mesdames et messieurs, the truth is known. Let us close this chapter." The suspects, no longer suspects but a family and staff grappling with betrayal, assembled in the drawing room. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her elegance restored but tempered by grief, sat with quiet dignity, her lace shawl draped loosely. Beatrice Harrington, her modern spark returning, held her mother's hand, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Victor Langford, his sharp features softened by relief, stood apart, his cigar unlit. Dr. Elias Thorne, his spectacles polished, clutched his medical bag, his face etched with regret. Geoffrey Blaine, his ink-stained fingers still, offered a shy nod, his nervous energy calmed by truth. Clara Voss, now under the butler Parsons' watch, stood in handcuffs brought by the groundskeeper until the police arrived, her black eyes defiant yet resigned. Poirot began, his voice steady and deliberate, weaving the final threads of the case. The murder of Lord Reginald Harrington was a crime of vengeance, meticulously planned. Mademoiselle Clara von Strauss, under the guise of a maid, sought justice for her father's ruin. She used a poisoned dart, blown through the study's keyhole with a hollow coral branch, a method drawn from her colonial knowledge. She entered via a secret passage behind the bookcase, stabbed the body post-mortem to mislead, and exited, locking the door with a duplicate key crafted in secret. He paused, letting the weight settle. The red herrings were many. The muddy footprint, placed to suggest an outsider. The stopped clock, dented to confuse the time. The cigar ash, scattered to implicate Monsieur Langford. The handkerchief and earring, dropped to cast suspicion on Mademoiselle Beatrice and Lady Evelyn. The singed note and diary, designed to both conceal and reveal. But the little grey cells, they saw through the deception. Lady Evelyn's voice trembled. "Why, Clara! Reginald was stern, but to kill—" Her words faltered, her hand tightening on Beatrice's. Clara's eyes, once unreadable, now burned with raw emotion. "Your husband bankrupted my father, left us destitute. His corals, my family's legacy, mocked me daily. I served, I waited, and I struck." Her confession, unrepentant, chilled the room. Beatrice, tears spilling, whispered, "I hated father's control, but I never wished this. Clara, you stole him from us." Poirot's gaze softened. "Mademoiselle, your own secrets, the coral theft, the engagement, clouded the truth, but you are innocent of murder. Monsieur Langford, your debts and arguments pointed to guilt, but your heart, it seems, lies with Beatrice." Langford nodded, his voice low. "I fought with Harrington, yes, but I loved Beatrice. I'd never kill for money." He reached for her hand and she clasped it, a tentative reconciliation. Dr. Thorne cleared his throat, his spectacles glinting. "I failed Clara's father years ago, and helped her here out of guilt. I never imagined." His regret was genuine, and Poirot nodded. "Monsieur Thorne, your negligence with the digitalis file aided the crime, but your heart was not malicious. Monsieur Blaine, your forged ledgers were a desperate act to protect Lord Harrington, not to harm. You too are cleared." Blaine's shoulders sagged with relief. "I only wanted to help, sir." Poirot turned to Clara. "Mademoiselle, your vengeance was precise, but justice belongs to the law. The police, they come soon." As Parsons led Clara away, her head remained high, her black eyes unyielding. Poirot addressed the family. "Coral House, it will heal. Lady Evelyn, your husband's will, altered to exclude Beatrice, can be contested. Mademoiselle Beatrice, your love for Monsieur Langford, it may yet find peace. The estate, it endures." Lady Evelyn nodded, her voice soft. "Thank you, Monsieur Poirot. We'll rebuild, for Reginald's sake." Beatrice squeezed her mother's hand, a silent promise of unity. As the group dispersed, Poirot and Hastings stepped into the entrance hall, where the coral displays caught the morning light, their menace gone. Hastings sighed. "A grim tale, Poirot. Clara's eyes, those black eyes betrayed her from the start, didn't they?" Poirot chuckled softly. "Oui, mon ami, but it was the method, the motive, the clues that spoke loudest. The eyes, they only confirmed what the little grey cells knew." He gazed at the corals, their intricate forms now mere artifacts. "Justice is served, and Coral House breathes again." The police arrived shortly after, their motor car crunching on the gravel drive. Clara was taken away, her fate to be decided by the courts. Poirot and Hastings prepared to depart, their bags packed, the mystery resolved. As they boarded the Rolls-Royce for the station, Poirot looked back at Coral House, its ivy-clad walls serene under the clearing sky. "Mon ami," he said to Hastings, "the human heart, it is complex as any coral reef, but truth, it always surfaces." Hastings grinned. "You're a marvel, Poirot. Care for a tisane when we're back in London?" Poirot's moustaches twitched. Natural element, Hastings, and perhaps a new puzzle to keep the little grey cells sharp. As the car rolled away, Coral House stood quiet, its secrets laid bare, its future uncertain but hopeful. The corals, silent witnesses, gleamed, in the dawn, their story complete.